Hey guys, still there. Welcome to Wargame. Before we kick off today's Wargame video, I have a question for you. I'm wondering how many of you were inspired by my videos to buy Wargame Red Dragon. So, just as a bit of an unofficial poll, could you upvote the comment that I posted below this video saying, yes, I bought the game through you? Because I keep getting these messages every now saying I got the game through you, and I'm just wondering how many of you actually did. So do me a favor, just upvote that if you got the game through me, so that I can show to Eugen just how valuable my channel is to them. Alright, moving on with the video. We are on Wonsan Harbor today. This is a 10v10 tactical, and it's the version of Wonsan where you also have a naval reinforcement route. So this route can be used to bring in ships, but ships are extremely expensive, and considering that it is a tactical, you gotta be really careful about your points. So you don't really see that much going on the water, usually. Now I'm going to be operating on the left, in Delta Zone. To throw people off, I'm bringing a UK Marines deck. And this is a bit of a two-sided coin, because on the one end you could think, oh dear, it's a UK Marine, so we're going to be seeing a lot of naval units. Well, yeah, maybe, but I can also field very high-level Marines. So I'm fielding Royal Marines, I'm fielding HGM infantry here, and I have one flying Lynx AH-7 with another group of Marines. We're going to be seeing quite a few of these guys. Backing me up here, or maybe I'm backing him up, this is Ricky D with his martyrs, which somehow misnavigated and missed the turn there. Making their way as well to Delta, and towards the middle we have Spect, again Martyr 2s, a Gepard A2, a Panzer, a Panzer mortar system, and he's flying in a command infantry unit over to Delta. These are the guys that I was on... we also have another one who I was on TeamSpeak on, Capian. Capian is going towards the middle with a couple of Martyr 1s, a couple of transports, and he's going to be holding on to the middle of the town. He's going to have a hell of a job to do that. Over on the right, well, honestly this match I wasn't paying that much attention to what happening on the right, because my area of operations was on the left. Now, I'm dropping off my Royal Marines on this little stretch of open terrain. This is where the Lynx can touch down. I'm keeping the Lynx grounded for now to make sure that it doesn't accidentally get picked up by an aircraft should it happen to fly over. And yeah, my Royal Marines are going to have a pretty steep climb ahead of them before they make it to the other side of the mountain ridge, but once they do, they might be able to spot into Bravo. That's the objective. In the meanwhile, it's getting pretty busy in Delta. We have Specialny Yetnotki, we have Senka over here with their very high-end RT-20 sniper rifle. BTR-70s, there's of course AA backing everything up. And it got pretty crowded in these structures, because you can only of course have one unit of infantry inside a block. So I was forced to move some of my guys away, as Ricky D was in a bit more of an offensive role here. He had units which were slightly better in that capacity. So instead, my objective is to just wipe out vehicles from afar with the Milan 2. Milan 2 not being overly accurate at 45% accuracy. Get these missiles to go more or less towards the target. But the issue is that unless it's a full hit, you're not going to do any sort of reasonable damage. Now, interesting find here was the command infantry. We found Jiwi Ban, just offloaded from an Mi-8, and for some reason, Igor here didn't move those guys away. He did not move the guys into the forest, so this was a pretty easy target. The problem was that we didn't really have anything that could reach out and touch them, short of the Spect's mortar on the right far side here. We're going to throw in a couple of mortar rounds and see if we can get the infantry killed there. Of course, the helo is going to get pretty worried, taking mortar fire like that. The infantry group so far is worried, but these mortar rounds are not landing very accurately just yet. In the middle, Capian is in a lot of trouble. He has a couple of Deckungsgruppe, he has Dragonair, But he is being forced to fall back, because we simply don't have enough people there. We have the Coalition of the Willing, pushing forward with an LVTP-7, as well as an AA unit there, a Humvee carrying some AA infantry. But the enemy does have a lot more infantry inside here. Now the right flank was interesting, because there was a bit of a naval landing going on. A couple of LCMs from Archer were pushing onto a Tarantula. Now, these things with their Brownings are not really going to be able to do a lot of damage against a Tarantula, if any, because these things do have armor all over the place. And you can see that even the short-range missile defense system of the Tarantula is going off against the LCM, and it is rapidly wasting all of its ammo on these little transport ships. He managed to get his guys into the zone, so we got Kutai 90 there, we got JSDF Rangers. And these guys are mostly functioning as a distraction for his infantry. Because the longer that he can keep those guys at bay, the more he can keep the Tarantula wasting its ammo, the less his guys are going to take fire from the enemy ship in there. So that's the plan. In the meanwhile, we also had a plan. We are starting to push through the smoke screen that Spect very nicely put up for us. So we got Ricky D in front with his martyrs. He just drove a little bit too far, and unfortunately immediately wiped out one of the martyrs thanks to the specialnies that were waiting for him there. So you can see his Fallschirmjäger pushing forward. One squad already took 2 casualties, that's because they were right close to the vehicle that went up. And my Gurkhas are pushing forward as well, trying to help out and provide a bit more short-range firepower. And that's when we run into Sapri 85. Sapri have their eye on the Fallschirmjäger, so I'm jumping over to this building as quickly as possible to make sure that the RPO is no longer capable of firing. Of course, I take a lot of damage in the process, but not as much damage as Ricky was taking there. That was worse. He's down to 2 guys out of his 20 initial. And that's when we get more bad news. Spetsnaz have arrived. Now, the Spetsnaz are still trying to push on our position here, and they are doing a hell of a good job. My Gurkhas have managed to clear out their own building, and now the Spetsnaz are not at all concerned about using their own RPO. So their RPO managed to take out my Gurkhas, he managed to almost wipe out all the Fallschirmjäger, and my Royal Marines are all that stands between the Spetsnaz and the very wounded Fallschirmjäger. And of course they are not going to be able to hold on for this for very long. Spect desperately trying to give us some sort of fire support with the mortar there, but unfortunately even that couldn't save us, especially once an airstrike came over and just wiped out our forces completely. But it might have hit the Spetsnaz as well. In the meanwhile, my Royal Marines have conducted quite the steep climb, and they have managed to make it all the way to Bravo. Now, Royal Marines, you could argue, might not have been the right unit here. I should have opted for reconnaissance infantry, because while Royal Marines are very good at short-range fighting, their optics are only medium. A unit with good or very good optics would have been much more valuable here. But still, I can do some spotting here and there. I can find some fobs. We have a helicopter coming over that looks like an Mi-4. We have a vehicle parked there that looks remarkably like a UAZ. And we have another vehicle that's coming in, which looks like a resupply truck. So, it looks like we have some interesting targets. The thing is, we didn't have a gun or an aircraft that had the range to go after them. So, while we could perfectly see them, we just didn't have any weapon system capable of going after these guys. No howitzers, no aircraft that could fly around. Only after a couple of minutes are we going to be able to actually get a unit that's capable of doing that. So, as we're waiting for that, let's have a look at the middle. We have Coalition of the Willing with his US Marines. We have Nye and Wolf providing Huda Ren support. And together they have been able to at least hold on to the middle. And let's see, where is Capian at the moment? Because he was operating mid. Yeah, he still has forces. Deckungsgruppe, Dragonair, and more Dragonair to the right. Deckungsgruppe with their Carl Gustav trying to do some damage. These guys unfortunately jumping all over the place. But the Deckungsgruppe can still do some damage to the Mutstroki. Dragonair pushing up. And this is a sort of ebb and flow of the battle here. It just usually keeps pushing forward, and somebody fires napalm, you're forced to retreat. Another guy pushes forward, and so it goes. So at some point you're going to have to fall back anyway to resupply your troops, and that's exactly what he's doing here. For some reason though, somebody brought a BMP-3. This is something that I find interesting, because the BMP-3, in my opinion, is very good at long range. Not so good at short range, because yes, it carries an autocannon, but it is very easily wiped out, and that's 40 points there. So keeping that thing at bay would have been a more suitable role for the BMP-3. Capian delivering forces right to the front line. More Dragonair are arriving. Pachongsus, a couple of transports here and there. The Dragonair are now moving to push hard on the Pachongsus as they are gaining ground. These Dragonairs doing a lot of damage against the remaining group there that just got evac from the vehicle. And in the meanwhile, over on the left flank, we have a Peace Pheasant from Nyan Wolf, doing a bit of aerial acrobatics, flying pretty much through a hilltop. You can see it's heavily loaded down with bombs. It is going right for the UAZ there. Let's go kill a command vehicle. So he comes in, does a carpet bombing run, hits the CV, and wipes it out. But that's not the last of them. And that was pretty much as expected. Now it got a bit close there as an Su-27 PU came over and almost took down the bomber, but he managed to make it out alive. Yes, the bomber's going to need some repairs for a while, but it's at least alive, so we can use that thing again at some point. Over on the right, the naval landing that initially distracted the enemy has completely failed. We didn't manage to keep our footing here, so they have been able to kick out all the forces, and I'm not quite sure what happened to that ship. So there might very well be survivors there. Su-24 comes over with a gun run. He's doing a bit of both. On the one hand, he's trying to look for targeting or for targetable anti-air units. On the other hand, he's trying to get shots on whatever he can find. And a gun run by an Su-24 like that can still heavily stun or damage your troops. So doing something like that, and there it is again, can actually get something killed. That's exactly what he's hoping for. Now on our left side we don't have any targetable AA. We just have a Crotal, and I believe that's all the AA that we have. We have 3 command vehicles no less. So we should be fine for command vehicles. And I'm starting to make my way forward with a couple of AVREs. In case you're not familiar with these things, very heavy engineer vehicles. This is what it stands for, AVRE, Armored Vehicle of the Royal Engineers. These things have a 165mm gun that only fires HE rounds. But the moment that these things hit, they hit like a truck, because their HE is 8. So any infantry caught out in the open is immediately going to lose 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 15 guys. The problem that I have here is that we have no spotting. Now my stalwart came in initially to resupply the guys up front, but almost drove immediately into the enemy town. Fortunately they didn't have anyone here, otherwise they could have easily destroyed that stalwart. And the AVRE is not taking any fire. Now we know that they don't have any HEGMs here, so that's fortunate. The problem was getting close and getting optics, so getting sight into this position. On the front end, we have Ricky D with his Panzer Grenadiers pushing forward. Now, surprisingly, he managed to walk all the way, basically from the position of my SBS, through the forest, all the way over here to the front line, where they finally ran into Spetsnaz. And this was a pretty close moment, because my Royal Marines, weapons off of course, were pretty much right underneath the Mi-4 AV that was trying to suppress the Panzer Grenadiers. And this thing was, well, it kept coming closer and closer and closer, so I was very concerned whether this guy would actually spot me or not. Fortunately, these things are not known for their optical systems. They have poor optics and that's it. So they're not really going to be capable of spotting much. Now, let's see if we can find this. Yeah. Something happened here that I still don't quite understand. This explosion that you can see here is the Crotal. The Crotal is not a vehicle that can be targeted by the Su-24. As you can see by the damage on the aircraft, it has taken 1, maybe 2 missiles from the Crotal. The interesting thing is, the Su-24 seemed to know exactly where the Crotal was. It came in with a gun run, and it actually destroyed the Crotal outright. The question is, how? Ah, there we go. I think he kept the position marked. That's probably how that happened. Specialnies might have been able to spot it as it was moving into the position here. And that's how they got an eye on it. Because as we were playing the game, we were awfully confused by that. This thing just came in with a gun run, specifically at the location where the Crotal was. So you're thinking, how the hell is he doing that? How does he know exactly where that unit is? But apparently his Specialnies might have been able to spot the guys. Now in the meanwhile, my Crotal is trying to soften up these positions a bit. A couple of very high rounds, or very high HE rounds going in. Now don't be confused, these are not purely craters by the aviary. It can also be craters by the aircraft that bombed initially. And this is where the Specialnies make a mistake. Because while they are firing at the Gurkhas, the aviary is returning fire and immediately wiping out 4 guys with 1 round. Quick to reload. It's looking for the second shot, but the Specialnies have already pushed themselves back deeper into the town, where they're going to be more difficult to find. So I placed down an attack marker saying that this is where they are, and now they've jumped this way. We have another group of Specialnies a little bit further to the right, and hopefully we can get these guys. Spectre comes in with a Tornado IDS, drops a couple of bombs on these guys, and I'm not sure if he got them. This is something that is always questionable in town bombings like this. You really got to coordinate with the guys. So you really got to say, okay, is he dead? Can we move up? Or they're still alive there? Now, the aviary didn't quite have a target here, but its HE splash range is so high that you can just fire it every now and then along the road. And stun or panic infantry if you fire several shots at them. Apparently this group was not affected, but I am using the aviary as a general, well, as a general scare-off tactic, I suppose you could call it. Just trying to get a couple of rounds in here and there, and trying to get some damage done on these guys. In the meanwhile, I still have perfect line of sight on the enemy base. We just don't have any CV targeted. Somebody said here we got 2 CV. So I'm not sure if he killed 2 of them, or if he was able to find one. I think he got both of them. Just looking at his score, it says 400, so that could be 2 CVs, but apparently there's more. There's many more, or there's at least 1 more command unit in Bravo. In this town, my aviary barely survived. It took a bombing run from, I believe, an Su-24. So my Gurkhas that were pushing up didn't survive. Fortunately, Ricky D's Fallschirmjägers did. And the Highlanders from Dan are keeping the guys at range with their Erics. So we have some short-range missile defense with the PZF-3. We have some medium-range missile defense with the Erics. And in the meanwhile, we also have issues here. We got some Genistic coming in. So these are the engineer troops from... let's have a look. Which nation is that? The Czech. We have the Genistic from the Czech coming in. They have taken quite a battering, but they're still alive. Fortunately, they didn't keep pushing, otherwise they could have easily wiped out my Milan. And I didn't really have that much that I could throw up as a defense. The town, in the meanwhile, is... well, it's making some progress, in the sense that it's getting more kills than most of us. So we still have Capian going strong here in the middle. Still pushing on Mastroki and Bachongsu. Another bombing run comes in. That was probably... hang on, did it survive? That was probably the Peace Pheasant that did another large-scale bombing run there. They do have an elite PU circling around, so we have to be really careful. Because these things, of course, in a map this small, can very easily kill off stuff. Tomcat tries to get a missile in, managed to hit the SU, SU is not that impressed though, fires a couple of missiles into it and no more Tomcat. In the meanwhile, I'm trying to get my aviary back up, and of course repairing these things is pretty expensive. So my supply truck is already empty, and I'm now using Dan's supply truck to keep this guy resupplied and keep it repaired, so I can keep moving it up and provide some more assistance towards the Spetsnaz and the Specialnies. Now as for points, I barely did anything this match. So far I've scored 60 points, which of course is less than I lost because of losing the Gurkhas, the Royal Marines. I lost an SBS group that was spotting from over there. So for points I'm not doing that well at the moment. As for the Dragonairs, we have the Dragonairs against the Spetsnaz wisely inside the same structure, so that the Spetsnaz cannot use that RPO weapon. And in the meanwhile we have a couple of Navy SEALs which are pushing up. Unfortunately, as a bombing run came in, it wiped out our command infantry there. So we were on our way to capture that position, but unfortunately didn't quite get it, thanks to a bombing run immediately, trying to probably suppress the SEALs, and instead hitting an accidental command vehicle instead. Now, since we have plenty of targets here, my aviary is moving up. With the aviary, you need to take note that these things do not do off-roading very well. Their off-road speed is 35, which is downright terrible, and once you go off-roading, you're also going to run into the problem of your autonomy. Your autonomy of only 450 is enough if you stick to the roads. If you switch off-road, you're going to run into all sorts of issues. Now unfortunately there wasn't that much to shoot at. So I'm trying to get this guy into a position where it can actually provide some fire support and still have some defense against potential ATGMs. So I'm parking it close to these structures. BTRD unfortunately out of range. This thing only has a range of 1 click. And we have an aircraft coming in, the Su-24. I'm wondering what is going to gun run next. Royal Marines still in position, still haven't spotted anything, still haven't fired a single shot. And over on this flank, I was trying to load or unload some actual reconnaissance infantry, so I offloaded SBS here. Apparently they saw my helicopter, and I think that might have been thanks to the Su-27PU or the Su-24. I'm not exactly sure which one it was, but the answer is pretty easy. Make sure your helicopter doesn't take off, because a helicopter that is landed is pretty much impervious to an AA unit that can only fire at aerial units. Instead, the SBS have a perfect shot at getting a kill here on the Strela 10. So their first round misses, unfortunately. Their second round will not. Target down. Thank you very much. And now my helicopter is safe to take off whenever it likes to. Now, we have the SBS pushing forward. And of course, they saw what happened here. So we're going to be seeing some more responses to the SBS and potentially to the helicopter, because it's still sitting there, not in a hurry to go anywhere. AA unit comes in, and you could have argued that I should have been able to kill this guy, because the Royal Marines might have dashed out and gotten a kill there. However, there was something else coming in. We are looking at a T-72B1. Which is a rather sizable investment to go after one reconnaissance group, but there it is. This is what they were going to use on the SBS. So I had a bit of a problem here. These guys could easily wipe out my SBS without the SBS being able to do anything against the tank. The BRDM-2 was providing the eyes for the T-72B1, so they know where I am, and it's going to take me a while to get back to that tree line. So I needed to buy my guys some time. How do you do that? I use the helicopter. The helicopter is going to provide some support in the sense of if I knock down the eyes, so if I knock down the reconnaissance here, the tank won't have a target. I'm just going to have to make this thing fast, otherwise the tank will fire one more round and knock out my infantry altogether. So there's his eyes gone, and now he can no longer see my infantry. Perfect. So this is a way that you, whoops, that's Archer. This is a way that you can use, for example, rocket helos to temporarily delay the enemy from seeing you, and hence saving your own infantry. At least I know it's at least I know it's still not safe for my Royal Marines to push out, because while they have a perfectly good anti-tank weapon, its range is not that good at 700. What I also have coming in is a couple of Fennecs from Capian. He's trying to flank around. He does have an autocannon that we need to be careful with. But with his Fennecs we are also able to find some more units here, such as an artillery unit. Nice find there. Fennec going to town on the transport. That was a WZ-550, I believe. The other Fennec just flies over. And look at the aggression of this unit. It just spots a command vehicle like that, turns around, tries to get the guns on target, kills the CV, ducks away from enemy return fire, which there is plenty of. You can see it's already taken quite some damage here. More fires coming in. Where is that coming from exactly? From the OT tab there, so it wipes out the OT tab. Now it's going to be in trouble, because now it's not really stable enough anymore to actually kill off these targets. It does try to line up a shot, once again gets a fire control malfunction, and at this point there's really not that much that this helo can do to survive. Fortunately the other helicopter was doing a good job, and it has been able to kill off the reconnaissance infantry, but of course Red pushes back and shoots down the helicopter. At this point, my AVREs had managed to make it all the way to the front line. So this is how little they had between us and their own base. Now 2 AVREs working in tandem is both very scary and a sight to behold. Because these things with their firepower can do immense amounts of damage. There you go. It's just the sheer HE damage of the AVRE, or if you like, the American version of it. That's why you use these things. By now Ricky has also pushed up with some Panzer Grenadiers and a Mortar 2. And the plan is to keep scouting out this town, or this little bit of tree line. And once my AVRE is in position, move on to this industrial lot where there still might be another command vehicle. Now, they were forcing another reconnaissance unit into my position here. So by now I had a Lynx TOW 1 standing by and taking out the reconnaissance vehicle. We unfortunately didn't really have an answer to an Mi-24D. This thing, even with flight time missiles, is able to take out, and pretty accurately take out, a Marder 2. Another bombing run comes in. I believe that was Spect's aircraft. That was the Tornado IDS. Manages to kill off another FOB, so Spect was just basically farming a few points there. Because he couldn't get too close with bombing, or he might have hit the Panzer Grenadiers. Pushing forward, we find a Bertino. Bertino scurrying away. Panzer Grenadier still loading their Panzerfaust, but you can see that it is losing accuracy, and by now it's out of range. So instead, it tries to get one round into it, misses the shot, unfortunately. And the Bertino makes its way towards the tree line and to, well, might be safety. Now at this stage the zone is clear, so they can no longer bring reinforcements, and I am now free to take over this FOB with my Royal Marines, and hence resupply my SBS and repair my damaged helicopter. Because this thing, I believe, took some damage from an AA gun or something like that. The AVREs are also in need of some fuel, so this AVRE is holding still, while the other one, which still has some fuel, is moving forward to try and suppress additional units. What we have here is an escaping T-72 M1D command tank. The command tank is trying to scurry through the town, which is a pretty safe position. AH-1T is having none of that, but you can see how effective that cover of the buildings is. Another missile comes in, and this one it cannot avoid, and there you go. No more command tank. Now they still had a Luda, interestingly. They had a Luda. These things, not extremely accurate with their main gun, at only 15%, but their ground range of almost 5 kilometers is rather significant. If these things want to, they can park themselves, let's say 4.5 clicks offshore, so well outside the range of any ATGM, and stay safe as they just batter whatever coming closer enough to them and get spotted by any assisting reconnaissance units. And at this point I was actually pretty worried that this Luda was doing exactly that. That it was trying to make its way towards the edge of the map or towards the waterline, making it difficult for us to get this guy down. And yes, you can still provide air support and get bombers in on him, but it's not going to be easy, because these guys also carry some decent AA weaponry, such as 2800 meter guns against helicopters and aircraft, so you got to be careful with both. And the Luda is now holding close enough to the shore. You can see that multiple aircraft are being scurried into it. We got a couple of F1s, we got the Tornado from Spect coming in. I believe that the Tornado is not going for the Luda. It is in fact going for the VDV here. These guys are going for the Luda. They're going on a bombing run. Now if you keep your ship moving, that's usually a pretty safe option. He tried to do that in the last possible moment. Locked him down with just one hit point to go. This was just outright funny. We are carpet bombing ships now. Back to the good old days of World War II. Luda, not so much impressed. Again, gets stunned. Surprisingly survives that entire bombing run. And while it's probably not doing very well for ammo, it is still afloat. So we still need to find a way to get this thing killed. Another aircraft comes in, Super Itandar. These things only fire one missile. So here we go, missile comes in. Luda, not having any of that, shoots down the missile. Fine, we'll bring a bigger aircraft. ASUW fires 2 harpoons. One missile gets stopped, but the other one doesn't. And that's the end of the game. Now as for my score, nothing impressive, 265 versus 165. So for me it wasn't that good of a match. What I wanted to illustrate with this was how close you can get if you're just a bit patient with your infantry. If you don't mind them taking, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes sneaking over the ridge line, then you can actually get a pretty good spotting position inside the enemy base. If they are not aware or if they're not posting any infantry of their own there, then that is going to be a problem. As for the rest of the team, most of the guys did great. You can see that Nyan Wolf, mostly operating, I believe, bombers, did a very good job there. 1000 points with only 375 losses. Capion in the middle, got quite a few kills. Spect, as per the usual, good score there. So overall, pretty good game. And I really enjoyed working together with these guys. So that's it for today. Let me know what your thoughts are on this match, and I'll be seeing you soon for more Wargame Red Dragon.